Empowered people make informed decisions that lead to living a life without regret. This is Sara Khaki and Shawna Woods from Atlanta Divorce Law Group, and this is the Happily Ever After Divorce Podcast. Welcome to the Happily Ever After Divorce Podcast. This is Sara Khaki with Atlanta Divorce Law Group, and I'm joined by our very own managing partner, Shawna Woods. Shawna, the topic today is parallel parenting versus co-parenting. And I have a smile on my face when I talk about this because I think we've heard the term co-parenting for years, right? It's very popular. It's what everybody preaches, that you have to co-parent, you have to co-parent. But I think that in the past decade, as people have educated themselves more on some high conflict personalities, have educated themselves with people that you're able to partner with and people that are never going to properly work with you, the idea of parallel parenting has come up more to sort of give us another framework for those of us who wish that they could co-parent, but it may not be a possibility due to the personalities of the two different parents or due to the high conflict nature of the other parent, and that just does not become a possibility. So we are now hearing more and more about this term called parallel parenting that I hypothesize comes from the past decade of just people educating themselves more on different types of high conflict personalities that makes it very challenging to co-parent with. So as always, as our managing partner, Shawna, give us the legal spiel on co-parenting versus parallel parenting. Give us the drone view of it.
Okay, well, first of all, yes. Ideally, in an ideal world, post-divorce, you and your ex-spouse are able to co-parent together. And what that typically looks like is that you do have conversations pretty regularly, probably once a week, about what's going on with the children, what is going on with their school, what's coming up with their extracurricular activities. You discuss how you're going to approach certain things. You discuss things financially, right? Whether these summer camps, extracurriculars, you attend the events and are cordial to each other. But mostly there's a direct line of communication, and you're still acting in conjunction with each other to parent your children. What happens, and what Sara was alluding to, or is basically saying, is that when you have a high conflict individual, or maybe even two high conflict individuals,
Right.
where that is not possible. It could be you were in an abusive relationship. It could be that this other person is so volatile and so angry still post-divorce that the communication between the two of you needs to be reduced simply to writing and writing only. And this is where you're seeing a lot of these apps come up about one of the ones that we use, and I'm not getting paid by them, but one of the ones that we use is Our Family Wizard. And I know there are other ones out there, but these are the kind of apps that designate this is the place to talk about the children. Here's a space to talk about the finances. Here's a space to talk about extracurriculars. Here's a space to talk about education. And you do it in writing. And for the most time, when you are engaging in parallel parenting, you only open this app as needed, right? Because the very emails or text messages that you may have gotten from the other person may be so volatile and so upsetting that you just can't do it more than once a week, right? So you limit your exposure. A lot of people who are parallel parenting have different sets of rules in their house, which can be hard. It's harder for the children. But if you cannot get your spouse, or your ex-spouse, I should say, on board with important rules you feel are being implemented in your house, you are simply going to have to implement them in your house and let them implement their own rules in their house. And it's also one of these things where they don't attend the same sporting events, or they sit far, far away from each other, extracurriculars, graduations, they're not engaging at all. They have separate parent-teacher conferences. They have separate conferences with medical professionals. So, parallel parenting is, for the most part, the way to separate the parents, and sometimes that's the best for the children.
Yeah, I mean, I think of it as in the hierarchy of what is ideal, co-parenting possibly the most ideal, right? I mean, one of the things that the courts in Georgia, they're looking for the best interest of the child, and they say it over and over again that the best interest of the child is to have a meaningful relationship with both parents. And for that to happen in the most peaceful way, where the child feels safe and doesn't feel ping pong back and forth between two parents, it is that co-parenting, because you're isolating the child from the logistics as much as possible of the fact that the parents have been divorced and we have to go through some back and forth logistics to make it work. So when the parents do that logistics beautifully together, the child just gets to have time present with the parent and not have to hear about the back and forth or feel that tension. That would be the most ideal state, is that like co-parenting. Doesn't mean it doesn't have problems. Doesn't mean that there's conflict and parents who are co-parenting in marriage, and there's conflicts with parents who are co-parenting through divorce. And I'll say this, these ideal states aren't just for divorced parents or married parents. I think even married parents have these issues. I think even married parents have issues where if they were to be really, really real with themselves and think it through, there are people in marriages who aren't co-parenting. They're parallel parenting, even though they're in one household. And we just don't look at that. We don't observe it. And we think this just happens to children of divorce. It actually happens a lot to children in married homes. So I think in a hierarchy, co-parenting ideal. If that is just not possible for you, and I see this, I had a client recently that I spoke to, and it was almost like years of therapy for her to just give up this hope of we will co-parent together. And it seemed like she was the only one doing all the emotional labor to get
Mhm.
them there. And the other parent, the father, just was not over the divorce, was not over the games, the mind games, and was using the logistics of co-parenting to keep getting at emotionally at our client. So at some point she just had to say, that is just not in the cards for us, is to co-parent. So I'm going to go to the second best thing I have. The next best thing I have is to just figure out a way to parallel parent with him. I think there is a rock bottom past that, which is they actually start alienating the child because they can't from the other parent. They start talking bad about the other parent. They start planting seeds about the other parent to the child, or try to come up with ways to withhold visitation, and distance the child from the other parent. So I do think that when people take inventory of their relationship with the other parent, what is possible here? And sometimes pushing so hard for co-parenting could create so much disappointment for the child. It could create so much of those moments where, well, mom's supposed to come pick you up right now. I don't know where she's at, because we're trying to push ourselves into this square box when that's just not us and we can't squeeze our way into it. But all we hear in social media and the books out there, I mean, how many books is there out there on co-parenting, and how much content are we consuming of this is the way to go or your child will be damaged? And that's hard for a parent to hear. And then to say, okay, if I don't do this, my kid's going to be messed up. And it's like you're constantly running away from this fear of, I can't co-parent. I can't co-parent. We're kind of here to tell you that there's a lot of parents that are actually parallel parenting that are in married homes. And right. And then there's people that are divorced that parallel parent, and it can be just fine. It might not be ideal, but it could be just fine.
And I want to emphasize that it's what's best for the children, because if you have somebody who wants to co-parent, but the other person doesn't, it takes two.
Yeah.
It cannot just be one saying, I'm the person who's going to co-parent, and they don't have the buy-in, or they have just, absolute rejection on the other side. And I want to tell you that it's not always to the courts when you're parallel parenting. A lot of times, what they're looking at is doing a 50-50 division of time set because they want to ensure that the children have access to both parents, to Sarah's point, so that there is not parental alienation. So if you are of the mind that, ooh, parallel parenting sounds fabulous to me, and it may be needed in your particular case, please also have in the mind that the court's probably going to look at this as a 50-50 custodial relationship so that they ensure both parents have access to the children and the children have access to both parents. So, is it ideal? No. Is it necessary? A lot of times it is because they simply cannot reach that level of um, cooperation is the word I'm looking for the ability, and both parents have to be there. Right? Both parents have to say, I am willing to cooperate, which means compromise, which is not a word that we like to say when we're dealing with our children post-divorce.
Oh yeah, asking a divorced parent to share their child with the person that they decided don't want to do life with anymore. It's not for the light of the heart. Um, so Shauna, I let me bring something up with you. Do you find I find this to be true? I wonder if you've seen it. People are using the word co-parenting and 50-50 parenting synonymously.
Yes, and that's not
What
actually
is
an
that
accurate
about?
statement. I think people use a lot of buzzwords and they tie them together and they don't necessarily always go together. Co-parenting doesn't mean that you have a 50-50 custodial relationship. Co-parenting means that the two of you are getting along well enough to have these deep conversations or even casual conversations and do it in a manner that you're not attacking each other, that you're not abusing each other, and that you're not, and I hate this word, but I'm going to use it, triggering each other, right? It is wonderful if we're able to put aside the animosities and the pain of the past. Not always able to do that. But I want to kind of bring in a third that we didn't even bring up, a third type of parenting style that I think happens in some of these conflict ridden divorces. There are a lot of times when you are the only parent, and we've talked about that before,
Yeah.
whether you're
Mhm.
the single parent or the only parent. So if you're co-parenting, you're working with someone else to raise your child. If you're parallel parenting, you're doing your own thing on your time. They're doing their own thing on their time. And they either have significant time or they have 50% of the time. There is another scenario in which the person who is a non-custodial parent just doesn't really parent.
Doesn't.
They may see the children sometimes. They may, quote unquote, visit with the children sometimes. But this is the person who always considers they're doing you a favor when they're babysitting the children instead of they are participating as a parent in these children's lives. So that's not parallel parenting. And I don't want people to think that that's what we're talking about when we're talking about parallel parenting. Parallel parenting is two actively engaged parents, just not actively engaged with each other.
Yeah, there definitely is also a third scenario, you're right, where you have the single parent who is bending over backwards to create some sort of a significant relationship for the child with the other parent. And at that point, I just call the other parent an adult relative to the child versus an actual parent. Because to me, a parent takes active interest and involvement in the development of the child. Um, Whether that is spending no matter how much physical time they're spending with them, they're part of the conversation of the development of the child. They take responsibility for it, versus the relative parent. That's what I want to call them, the relative that gets to come and have fun with them, spend some time with them, and then doesn't take any responsibility back home. It's like, you know what? You just get to be the fun aunt or uncle, don't you? Um, that one's really, really frustrating for single parents. It's very frustrating.
I think it's extremely frustrating. It's frustrating to the point of on so many different levels because our co-parenting analysis, right, is built on the idea that both parents are going to be involved. And you are going to be able to discuss things like education and medical and extracurricular and religion with the other parent and make these decisions, if not together, then absolutely having their input. When you don't have a parent on the other side that can have those discussions, whether you're doing parallel or you just have what I call the Disney daddy or the Disney mommy,
Yeah.
um, then you're making all these decisions basically on your own. Co-parenting, and just to reiterate, you can do 50-50 in co-parenting or parallel parenting, but when you have the Disney dad or the Disney mom, that's not a 50-50 scenario. And it's not to say if you do A or B that it is a 50-50 scenario. It's just that it can fit into any one of the scenarios. In my experience, when you decide to parallel parent, a lot of courts will take that to be, we think you should divide time equally with the children. So it's just a caution I want to give to people when the immediate gut check is, I can't co-parent. Okay. Are you ready? And do you think it's good for your children to spend 50% of the time with the other spouse?
Right. Right. Also, don't you see how courts usually do look for the parent who is going to be most supportive of a co-parenting framework, and they usually reward that parent more. So that is also another gut check, I think, for the parents going through this process is align yourselves and your goals with the court's goals, and you'll see the reward in that. The court's interest is the best interest of the child. They believe the best interest of the child is co-parenting. So if you present your goals and your objective to be, I want to do what it takes to co-parent, and that's how you present yourself, the court will more likely reward you than the other.
Absolutely. One of the factors that they take in consideration when they list what are the factors we consider when we're considering the best interest of the child? One of the key factors is, can you facilitate a relationship with the non-custodial parent and the children? And if the answer is no, you might not be the custodial person.
Right. Shawna, how much control does the parent who's involved in parallel parenting, how much control do you think they have to give up? Because emotionally, this can be tough for the custodial parent, right? The custodial
Ab-
parent that's been the primary caretaker and now has to accept the fact that, man, we're not co-parenting, we're parallel parenting. So when, child goes over to her house or his house, it's not gonna at all look or feel the way I want things to be done for my child, and I just have to let go of that.
Yep. And that's the key of it. You have to let go of it. Unless this person is putting your children in danger, just because they parent differently than you do does not mean they parent wrongly. And I have a lot of times I have to sit with people who will tell me, he's never changed a diaper. My children have never been alone one night with this person. Okay, well, he's going to have to change a diaper now. And they're going to be spending the night alone at dad's house. And that's going to happen. And we have to wrap our heads around it. I think it's really hard for people who have been primarily a parent and a homemaker to let go of that, because not only is that how they feel what's in the best interest of their children because they've been there since birth, but that's part of their identity is to
Yeah,
be able to provide and control the atmosphere around their children. That's not going to happen. You married someone. You chose to have children with someone. That someone is going to get to be those children's parents. The children deserve two parents. You're not going to be able to gatekeep what goes on in the other person's household.
that's,
To the extent it's not dangerous.
Yes. Yes. I
Well,
want to raise this advice for the parents who are involved in parallel parenting, and I'll leave it there. I do think it's very important to think about transition time for the children when they come home from another parent's house where the setup is parallel parenting. The children will need some transition time. And if that's just part of the structure that you create in your schedule and the way you bring the kids back home to your house, you just know that, okay, they just came back from a week of being at mom's house or a week of being at dad's house or a week of being at the other parent's house. And I need to just give them like maybe a 24-hour window to transition back instead of just being like, okay, let me look for all the things my child's going to be doing wrong now and all the, behaviors I have to correct in the next 24 hours. Just give them some time, let them transition back into the house and into the structure of your home. And they will bounce back. Kids bounce back much quicker than you think. I mean, the analogy I have to that is, parents who work and we leave our home every day and we leave our home. We leave that soft parenting, cuddling with our kids, the warmth of the home. We go into a office or a business setting somewhere and we're making decisions, we're moving things, we're, on our feet, thinking a mile a minute. And then we have to go back home to little ones and be soft and cuddly and nurturing. And that's transition for us as adults. Some of us are not even aware of it, but that drive home, you're already transitioning into that. Your child's going through the same kind of thing. So if you can just know that they just need a little bit of transition to adjust back and you give them the space to do so, they'll be fine. Anything else on that, Shawna?
no, well, maybe just one more because I think that what you brought out was so very important. Um, and also just another example, think of our children when they go off to school. And school has different roles than home has, right? Or they go to when they're a little bit older, they may be involved in extracurricular activities, and the coach has different rules than you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you teach your children, well, when you're in the school setting, you obey the teacher. She's the one who sets the rules. And when you're out on the field, the coach is the one who sets the rules. And when we're in my home, I'm the one who sets the rules. And when you're in dad's home, he's the one who sets the rules.
That is a core principle to just teach them that's consistent throughout everything they experience. I love that. Thank you, Shawna.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Happily Ever After Divorce podcast. If you'd like to learn more, go to atlantadivorcelawgroup.com/resources.